Hey, what is going on? Butch here. So I started this little thing where I was doing the truth about each sign. Today we're going to do Libra. It's just like a little insight. Most of the things that I'm going to say and talk about are things Libra's already going to know, obviously. I do these because it kind of gives some more insight to the outside people. You know, people in your family, friends, romantic relationships, gives them a little more insight into Libras. But I've been doing this. I did a few signs already. I'm going to do them all. I really enjoy doing it. Just knowledge that I've learned over the years through friends, through research. So it's not going to fit everybody. Everybody has, you have your 12 houses, but generally, it's not for you to take offense. I don't mean anything by it. I didn't do it as a pro and con because some people do that. I feel like some things can be pros and cons. So I really didn't want to go one way or the other. So anyway, you'll see me looking down from time to time. I write extensive notes just so I don't get off target, because those who know me know I do that sometimes. The first thing is Libras are diplomatic, and they tend to be reasonable. So they they can make non-biased decisions. They're very good at figuring things out. Especially when it comes to two different parties. If they walk in and two people are at each other, they like to take over and just kind of bring the temperature down and be fair. Libras are really fair. Like I said, they're reasonable, they're fair. This is why a lot of Libras, not all, but a lot of Libras tend to have human resources jobs, counselor jobs, lawyers. Two of my actual good Libra friends are civil rights lawyers, so it really fits. But they tend to do things in a way that kind of brings, like I said, it brings down the temperature in the room and just kind of has an ear for everybody in the moment. Which leads into number two. Libras like to build harmonious relationships, whether it be friendships, relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, and family. They want harmony. They want, everything to be calm and run smoothly. And it's one of the things, they're ruled by Venus, and Venus is all about harmonious energy. They like things to be, they're not a big fan of escalated situations. They're not at all entertained by that. Like some signs will be entertained by that. They, some people kick a hornet's nest just to see, people go running. And with Libra, they're more likely to run in and grab that hornet's nest and run away from all the people. Like, just, kind of keep everything calm in that area. Number three, kind of leading from the last one, they often seek long-term relationships. Libras like to be in a relationship that's, again, harmonious, but they also want a relationship that, they're not the one. They like to debate, but not argue. So they like to have someone that's going to match their energy. And when they find someone, they tend to like to build with them. Number 4, they avoid confrontation. Like I said, I mean, we talked about the harmonious part, but it's deeper than that. I just feel like they want everything to run smoothly. They don't, and they will avoid the confrontation. Like a lot of times, they'll even use like white lies. They don't want to hurt you. They just don't want the conflict. And it can cause anxiety. The thought of the conflict. The next one, like I said, it kind of goes into avoid confrontation. They don't like drama. They don't want the drama. That's why they like the long-term relationships. They like to get to know someone. They like to gel with that person. They like to be they just like to be in a place where it's a safe place. It's a place that doesn't have highs and lows. It's just steady. So they don't like the drama. They don't like, and that's a lot of the reason why, like, that diplomatic part of them is they try to bring it down. Like, it's not that they don't like drama and they'll run away. It's not like that. It's more like they walk into a dramatic situation and they try to, bring it down. Very, very much so, like a hostage negotiator. Like they want to bring things as calm as possible because bad shit tends to not happen when things are calm. Number 7, they don't really care for inconsiderate or selfish people because they're not that themselves. They tend to do for others. They tend to, put themselves in a place where they're surrounded by people that are more like them. And people that are selfish and inconsiderate, it's rude to them. Number 8. Now, this is one of the ones that kind of leads from the last one, is you'll never really know how they feel till it's too late. Like in a situation where if they were to be with, meet someone that was selfish and inconsiderate, they might not tell you. They just might just kind of walk away, just vacate themselves from that situation. So a lot of times they kind of keep their negative thoughts to themselves, which leads into number 9. They're people pleasers. They want happiness around them. They want, you to be happy. They want, that's the ideal world, is everybody's just happy and everybody's just getting along, so they will tend to please people, now that's one thing with people pleasing it's a thing that I notice a lot of Libras deal with, is misconception of that being, that they're nice and they say nice things and they're considerate, and sometimes it comes off as like a flirtation, but usually they don't mean it that way. They just want you to feel good, and that's, we lead into the next one, is 11, is they're very social. They like companionship. They're extroverted. They like connections. They like building connections. And it's one of those things, like I said, they can be, they can put other people's feelings above their own. They want you to be happy. And if they can help you, if they can facilitate you to be happy, they'll do that. And so I mean, they're just the type of people that, they're just fun to be around, and the fact that they're gonna It's not going to be crazy party fun, but it's not going to be boring. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be in a place where, people are happy. It's just one of those things that they thrived, and that's why they are, the diplomatic and reasonable, all these things, and that's why they have that socialness to them. That's why people like being around them, because they have a tendency of calming the waters. And nobody wants to be in a stressful situation. Not many people thrive in that situation. The next one, they bottle up their emotions. Because a lot of times, and it's usually negative emotions, because the negative emotions cause conflict. It all kind of, I know this all kind of, they all work into each other. Like, it's a big part of who Libra is. They bottle up their emotions, and because a lot of times it can give them, again, anxiety. Because the thing is when you're talking about a situation where, okay, if I talk about how I feel and this is going to make that person uncomfortable, it's going to be an uncomfortable situation. So it's almost like avoidance is the best key, which it isn't, but the next thing is I feel like a lot of Libras don't like to admit when they're wrong, but this causes a ripple effect. They don't like to admit they're wrong because they don't like the conflict, but it causes a ripple effects because it causes a lot of guilt and a lot of internal reflection. Just because they don't say that they're wrong doesn't mean they don't feel guilty about it, because they actually really do. They're known to feel guilty, to feel some sort of way, and that's something that they suppress, again, when we talk about bottling up their emotions, guilt. So it's hard for them to admit when they're wrong, because they know it's going to cause, for a lot of other people, it's going to cause them to react in a way that Libras don't want to deal with. Now, this kind of leads into the next one. The next one is overthink. Libras are known to be indecisive, because they do overthink, because they do, they have a hard time making decisions. Libras don't make the greatest bosses. If you want a quick decision, if you want a quick answer to something, you're probably not gonna, get it from a Libra, because being put on the spot is hard for them, because they are indecisive, because they do overthink. How is my reaction gonna be received? They're always seeing from the outward in, it feels like how are other people gonna see me? And that goes into a lot of overthinking. And that's why the indecisiveness, because it's hard for them to make that decision. Because when someone makes a decision, it's kind of like you stand on it. You make a decision, you stand on it. They don't want to be in that situation. The next thing is because we're leading into the next thing is they don't believe without seeing. If you have two people telling them a story, they have to see it in order to form an opinion. They can't just take your opinion. They can't take the other person's opinion. They got to see it. If there was an accident and two people are fighting over it, they'd want to see the film. They'd want to see any kind of video camera that caught it. They want to know, and then kind of like why this happened in this, like, they know all, they want all the details. They have to have all the details in order to make a decision. And that's, again, part of the indecisiveness, is it's hard to make it be decisive when you don't really know. Some people will just form an opinion based on the person telling them, like one person tells another person, say, hey, that person's a really bad person. And they're like, well, why are they a bad person? And the person makes this a story up. Well, now Libra's thinking, okay, is this true? You know, I gotta know that this is true in order to think that way about this person. You know, so it's one of those things. And that leads back into that part where they're being fair and they're not, you know, they're non-biased nature. I mean, that's what makes them good at what they do. Like I said, for a lot of people, it has to do with justice. It has to do with human rights. It has to do with the counselor, lawyers. You know, they take every side into account. You know, some people just jump on the bandwagon. You know, you're my friend and you're telling me something about this person. Okay, well, that's what this person is. That's not a Libra. They're free thinkers. They will think for themselves, but they need the details. Another thing, the next thing, Libras are very sensitive to beauty. You know, they like the aesthetics. They like, you know, just setting a mood. You know, they like beautiful things. They like feeling beautiful. They like, you know, feeling handsome if you're a male. You know, and a lot of times, a lot of Libras that I know, when I've been in their places are very, have this certain aura about it. Like it's almost like spa-ish, like a spa, like it's very calming, it's, but yeah, they're very sensitive to beauty. You know, they like things that bring the temperature down. And I know I've said that already a couple times, but I mean, Libras are so based in that, you know, that's their base level. It is just that harmonious energy, even in their own life. The next thing, Libras are a bit luxurious. Not a bit, they're luxurious. They love self-care. They love people to take care of themselves. You know, they like the finer things in life, which, like I said about the pros and the cons, can be a good and a bad thing. Sometimes it can get you into financial trouble trying to live a life beyond your means. But, I mean, they take care of themselves very well. You know, a lot of times, one of my friends that I met a few years ago, when I met him, I knew he was a Libra. You know, he had his nails done all nice, and then I just guessed it. I was like, "Are you a Libra?" And he's like, "How did you know that?" I was like, "I don't know. It's just something about him. He just had this fanciness to him. Like he was just he took care of himself. You could tell, like he was just one of those people that, you know, really take care of themselves. They really pride themselves on self-care. And like I said, it's leading into the next one is the financial issues. Libras are very generous. You know, they're people pleasers. All these things can land you in the hot water when it comes to finances. You know, it can lead to financial issues and luxuriousness. And, you know, like I said, it's, you know, for instance, my friend that I was just talking about, he was having a birthday party for his brother, and this guy pulled out all the stops. I mean, you could tell he planned for a long time because he wanted to make everybody happy that was there. He wanted everybody to have a good time, you know, and it was such a luxurious party. Like it was something like you see in a TV show or a movie or something, and everybody kept telling him like, you should be a party planner. He said, I wouldn't make any money because you know how long it took me to plan this. Like, but again, you could tell it was top notch, and then he probably spent a lot of money on it when a lot of people wouldn't go that far. So it can cause financial stress. The next thing is, in a relationship, Libras like balance between them and their partner. Their thoughtfulness, they're very thoughtful. And they kind of want that energy matched. They're going to think about you. They're going to, when they're in a relationship, they'll do really nice things for you, and they like really nice things in return. But they're very observant. So, for example, that party I just talked about, his brother never really had a big party, and he kind of wanted that. And it was something that they talked about months before, and he just remembered that, and that's when he started to plan this party, because he wanted to go above and beyond. He really wanted to, do something big. He wanted to be that person to show up, and like I said, it was a thoughtful party. It was even weird because I felt like he wasn't as comfortable at the party as you think that someone that planned it would be, but he wasn't doing it for him. He was doing it for his brother. Same as a relationship. They're very thoughtful. They're observant. So they will go out of their way for you. But they do like that back. The next one kind of leads into as well is they like to be showered with kindness. Thoughtful gifts. Being spoiled a little bit. They like it back. And like I said, they have that luxurious lifestyle. They like that idea of it. Not all Libras are luxurious, but I feel like a lot of them have that's one of their happy places, is in a place where it would be, finding happiness in places like a spa or a nice vacation on a beach somewhere, just somebody bringing you drinks, just like getting spoiled. They like that. If you're into a Libra romantically, that's a big thing for you. Now, in all of them, since we're adults, I put a little bit of a, Libras in the bedroom type energy, or each sign in the bedroom type energy. And with Libras, Libras like to take it slow. They love foreplay. They like when you set an atmosphere, playing some music, some candles, just some really, sensual touching. It's setting the mood. They want the mood. They want it set. They want to enjoy it. They want a relaxing situation. So they're not ones for, some people like aggressiveness, and some people like domination. It's not like that with Libras on the most part. They like it. They want you to know that you're enjoying it as much as they're enjoying it. They want you to want them to enjoy it as much as you're enjoying it. It's about give and take. For some people, they could care less what you think. And that's just not Libra. Libras are very attentive, like I said, very observant. So it's one of those things they want to be in and again, aesthetics. We talk about aesthetics. They just want it to be nice and chill and, sexy and romantic and all those things. Because they do have a romantic heart. They don't show it as well as some signs, but they do have a very romantic heart. And that's why, we talked about before, they love long relationships. They don't like the drama and the breakup and all that stuff. So they tend to take their time. And the last one, self-aware. They're very self-aware. They know they're like I said, a lot of Libras aren't going to get much from this because you are already self-aware. You're very self-aware. Now, being very self-aware can be a good and a bad thing. It can help with growth. It can be a gift. But it also can be a bad thing because it can lead to overthinking. With overthinking, it brings us like crippling weight. Like when you're self-aware, it's not just aware of all the good things about yourself. It's about knowing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes we can overthink the ugly and the bad. But in a good perspective, it can help you grow. Because if you know what issues you have, or if you know where your faults are, it's easier to fix them. Some people say they're self-aware, but they're only aware of their good qualities, which, that's like if you look at a house and, the windows are all broken, but it's got a brand new paint job. And people are like, oh, look at the paint job in my house. Well, what about your broken windows? So it's one of those things where you can't just see one thing and not see the other. Like the veil is off and they see it. Most Libras that I know are very self-aware. They're aware. And another thing too is the overthinking, is the self-awareness. Is, like I said, sometimes it feels like a Libra's almost looking from the outside to the inside, because that's how people see them. And it's about how people see them is important to them. Like when they talk, my one buddy, he has to tell detailed parts of stories that really don't need to be said, but he says it so it gets on, it puts it in the right perspective. Like it's almost like they're afraid. There's that fear that you're gonna see them in a way that they're not really, and that's something they don't want. They don't want you to see them. If they tell a story, they want to make it clear that, it's not like he was telling me about his dog got hit by a car. And he was talking about, he goes, but I never leave the door open, and I don't know how the door got open. And like, he was really worried that I thought he was letting his dog out on purpose to get hit or something. You know what I mean? Like, that was just something I picked up on him. And it was just like that. It's almost like they don't want you to see them in a negative light, especially when there's no negative light shown on it. I hope that makes sense. Like I said, it's a lot of this is to do with harmonious energy, and that's just a big thing. Balanced, harmonious energy, calming, relaxing. It's a word I've used a lot during this video, but I feel like it's an important thing to Libra. Now, I always end it with, if you've been with a Libra and you lost them somehow, I always end the videos with, if you lost the sign somehow, there's ways that you may have a chance to get them back if you do these things. Libras is really simple. It's just make it right. If you wrong them, make it right. And that's the chance. That's not going to get you them back for sure. That may not work 9 times out of 10, but if you want a shot, you got to make it right. Like I said, they need the balance. It's kind of like that, like the justice, eye for an eye type of thing. Like if you do something wrong, you got to make it right. But they can be quite forgiving. So, I mean, it depends how wrong you did it. I mean, obviously you can't make it right if you did something too wrong, but I mean, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm planning to do more. I really do. I really do enjoy it. Because like I said, I really want sometimes misconceptions of different signs happen a lot. And I feel like it's because people don't take the time to learn, and in my relationship, I'm a Sagittarius, and my partner, she's a Gemini, and we've been together 16 years, and I'm still learning things. So it's not, this isn't going to teach you, this isn't the cheat sheet on Libra by any means, but it just gives you a little bit more understanding, and understanding, can bring people closer together. So that's what I have for you. Be good. Take care. Stay safe.